They told you Antarctica is just ice, penguins, and scientists in red parkas. But beneath 2 miles of frozen silence lies one of Earth's last great mysteries, and a geopolitical time bomb ticking toward 2048. For decades, a fragile international agreement has kept this continent off limits to mining, military bases, and private exploitation. It's called the Antarctic Treaty System, signed in 1959 by 12 nations during the height of the Cold War. At a time when the world teetered on nuclear brinkmanship, these countries made an astonishing choice: declare Antarctica a zone of peace, science, and shared stewardship. No weapons, no territorial claims, no resource extraction, just pure, protected wilderness at the bottom of the world. But here's what most people don't know: the treaty isn't permanent. And while it doesn't expire in 2048, that year marks a critical legal threshold, one that could open the door to debates about mining, tourism expansion, and even sovereignty disputes. The truth isn't that Antarctica is hiding gold or alien bases. The real secret is far more urgent. It's the only place on Earth where humanity has agreed, so far, to put cooperation above conquest. And that agreement is now being tested like never before. So what exactly happens in 2048? Contrary to viral headlines, the Antarctic Treaty does not expire. It's designed to last indefinitely. However, 2048 is the first year when any signatory nation can formally request to amend or review the Environmental Protocol, a key part of the treaty system that bans all mineral resource activity. This protocol was adopted in 1991 and entered into force in 1998. Article 7 states, "Any activity relating to mineral resources, other than scientific research, shall be prohibited." But Article 25 adds a clause. After 50 years from entry into force, that is 2048, any party can propose changes to this ban. Crucially, any amendment would require unanimous consent from all 56 treaty parties, including the 29 consultative nations with voting power. That means even if China, Russia, or the US wanted to lift the ban, they'd need agreement from tiny nations like Belgium, Peru, or South Korea, all of whom have strong environmental stances. So while 2048 is a legal milestone, it's not a doomsday switch. It's a moment of global accountability. Will nations choose short-term profit over planetary preservation? Or will they reaffirm Antarctica as a commons for all humanity? The answer won't come from secret meetings, but from public pressure, scientific advocacy, and international diplomacy. But why would anyone want to mine Antarctica? After all, it's the coldest, windiest, driest place on Earth. Drilling through 2 miles of ice to reach bedrock sounds economically absurd. Yet satellite data and geological surveys suggest the continent holds significant reserves: iron, ore, coal, chromium, copper, and possibly rare earth elements critical for green technology. In the 1970s and 80s, oil companies conducted seismic surveys along the continental shelf, estimating billions of barrels of offshore oil. But here's the reality. Even if mining were legal, it would be prohibitively expensive and environmentally catastrophic, melting permafrost, disrupting subglacial ecosystems, and risking oil spills in pristine waters. These aren't hypotheticals. They're certainties. And unlike the Arctic, which has indigenous communities and existing infrastructure, Antarctica has no native human population and zero industrial capacity. Every machine, every worker, every drop of fuel would have to be shipped in across stormy oceans. The true value of Antarctica isn't in its minerals, it's in its ice. The continent holds 70% of the world's freshwater and enough ice to raise global sea levels by 58 meters if fully melted. Scientists aren't looking for gold. They're racing to understand how fast the ice sheets are collapsing due to climate change. That knowledge is worth more than any mine. In fact, the greatest threat to Antarctica isn't mining, it's climate change. While the treaty bans drills, it can't stop rising temperatures. West Antarctica is warming faster than almost anywhere on Earth. Glaciers like Thwaites, the Doomsday Glacier, are retreating at alarming rates, destabilizing entire ice shelves. NASA's ICSat, two satellites shows Antarctica losing 150 billion tons of ice per year. This isn't just a polar problem. Meltwater from Antarctica already contributes significantly to sea level rise, threatening Miami, Shanghai, and Mumbai. And beneath the ice, hidden worlds are awakening. Over 600 subglacial lakes have been discovered, liquid water trapped for millions of years, potentially harboring ancient microbial life. These ecosystems are so isolated that disturbing them could mean losing species before we even know they exist. These ecosystems are so fragile that even a single microbe from outside could trigger ecological collapse. Tourism also poses risks. Pre-pandemic, over 74,000 visitors came annually, up from just a few hundred in the 1980s. Ships risk oil spills, boats carry invasive seeds, drones disturb wildlife. The treaty allows tourism, but regulation is patchy. Meanwhile, scientific research continues under strict environmental protocols. Stations like McMurdo, US, and Vostok, Russia, operate with zero-waste policies, powered increasingly by wind and solar. Science, not extraction, remains Antarctica's true purpose and its best defense. The Antarctic Treaty system is often called the most successful arms control agreement in history. Born in 1959, it froze 7 overlapping territorial claims by Argentina, Australia, Britain, Chile, France, New Zealand, and Norway, and barred new ones. Military activity was banned. Nuclear explosions prohibited. Scientific data had to be shared openly. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, US and Soviet scientists continued collaborating in Antarctica, proof that cooperation could survive even the darkest geopolitical hours. Today, 56 countries are party to the treaty, including former Cold War rivals and emerging powers like India and China. China has built 5 research stations and plans a 6th, sparking concern about its long-term intentions. But under the treaty, station presence doesn't equal sovereignty. You can't claim land by planting a flag. All activities must serve peaceful purposes. Inspections are allowed. Any nation can visit any station to verify compliance. This transparency builds trust. The system isn't perfect. Illegal fishing persists, waste management challenges remain, and geopolitical tensions sometimes spill over. But compared to the Arctic, where Russia is militarizing islands and the US debates drilling, the Antarctic model stands as a rare beacon of multilateralism. It proves that even in a fractured world, humanity can agree to protect something greater than itself. So what's really at stake in 2048? Not a sudden rush for minerals, but a test of global values. Will nations prioritize short-term economic gain or long-term planetary health? The answer depends on public awareness. Most people don't know Antarctica is protected or that it's under threat. Viral myths about hidden cities or alien bases distract from real issues: ice loss, biodiversity collapse, and diplomatic fragility. The truth is more compelling. Antarctica is Earth's climate archive. Its ice cores contain 800,000 years of atmospheric data, bubbles of ancient air that show CO2 levels never rose this fast in human history. Scientists drill these cores not for profit, but for prophecy. They tell us what's coming if we don't act. Protecting Antarctica means protecting that knowledge and the stability it represents. Environmental groups like ASOC, Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition are already campaigning for a 2048 pledge, a global commitment to extend and strengthen the mining ban. Youth movements are demanding their governments uphold the treaty. Even corporations are listening. Tour operators now follow strict IATO guidelines to minimize impact. The momentum is building, but it needs voices like yours. Sharing accurate information, not fear-based speculation, is how we defend this last wilderness. Let's debunk the biggest myth, that Antarctica is up for grabs in 2048. It's not. The treaty's core principles, peaceful use, scientific freedom, non-militarization, are permanent. Only the mining ban is subject to review, and even then, consensus is required. given that 28 of 29 consultative nations have publicly reaffirmed their support for the ban, including resource-rich Australia and mineral-hungry China. It's highly unlikely any amendment will pass. Why? Because the cost outweighs the benefit. No nation wants to be seen as the one that broke the Antarctic consensus. The reputational damage would be immense. Moreover, renewable energy and recycling are reducing demand for virgin minerals. Rare earths can be recovered from old electronics. Iron comes from urban mines. Antarctica's real strategic value is as a neutral scientific platform. Climate models, space observation, cosmic ray detection all rely on its pristine environment. Disrupting that for marginal mineral gains makes no sense. The smarter play? Invest in science. Nations that lead Antarctic research gain soft power, not through flags or fences, but through knowledge. In the 21st century, influence comes from data, not drills. What can you do? First, get informed. Follow official sources. The Antarctic Treaty Secretariat, ATS.AQ, NASA's Cryosphere Program, and the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research, SCAR. Avoid sensationalist channels that peddle Antarctica secrets. Second, support responsible tourism. If you visit, choose IATO-certified operators who limit group sizes, buy clean gear, and avoid sensitive sites. Third, advocate. Urge your government to reaffirm the mining ban before 2048. Write to representatives. Share verified science. Public opinion shapes policy. Remember, Antarctica belongs to no one and everyone. It's governed not by kings or corporations, but by a collective promise made in 1959 and renewed every day by scientists braving minus 80 degrees Celsius winters to study ice cores, by diplomats negotiating conservation measures, by citizens who care enough to pay attention. This continent is our planet's immune system, a place so pure it reveals the full impact of human activity elsewhere. When ice melts here, seas rise everywhere. When ecosystems collapse here, it signals planetary imbalance. Protecting Antarctica isn't about saving penguins. It's about saving ourselves. And the deadline isn't 2048, it's now. The irony is profound. The continent least touched by humans is now ground zero for understanding humanity's impact on Earth. While tropical forests burn and oceans acidify, Antarctica's ice preserves a record of our past and a warning for our future. Its protection isn't idealism, it's survival strategy. If we can cooperate here, in the harshest environment on Earth, maybe we can cooperate elsewhere. The treaty proves it's possible, but vigilance is eternal. As climate refugees grow, as resources dwindle, as geopolitical rivalries intensify, pressure on Antarctica will mount. Not from cartoonish villains, but from legitimate desperation. That's why the 2048 review matters, not as a trigger for exploitation, but as a moment to renew our covenant with the planet. Imagine if, instead of weakening the ban, nations proposed something bolder. Designate Antarctica a global sanctuary, expand marine protected areas, fund climate resilience research, turn the continent into a living lab for sustainability. That's the vision worth fighting for. Not because Antarctica has gold, but because it has truth. And in an age of disinformation, truth is the rarest resource of all. So the next time you hear Antarctica 2048, don't think of mining rigs or secret bases. Think of ice cores holding ancient air. Think of scientists sharing data across borders. Think of a treaty signed when the world was divided and held together by a shared belief in peace. The real story isn't about what's under the ice. It's about what's above it. Humanity's capacity to choose cooperation over conquest, science over greed, legacy over loot. Antarctica doesn't need saving from aliens or conspiracies. It needs saving from indifference. And that starts with you. Share this truth. Demand accountability. Support science. Because when the history of the 21st century is written, one question will stand out. Did we protect the last untouched place on Earth? Or did we let it become another battlefield? The answer won't come from governments alone. It will come from millions of voices saying, this ice is not for sale. Not in 2048. Not ever. The continent at the end of the world is watching. And so are we. But let us go deeper into the ice itself. Beneath the surface, Antarctica is not a static wasteland, but a dynamic living system. The East Antarctic ice sheet, though more stable than its western counterpart, contains enough ice to raise sea levels by 53 meters. Recent studies using radar and seismic imaging reveal that even this stable sheet is showing signs of basal melting due to geothermal heat and warming ocean currents penetrating deep beneath the ice shelves. The Wilkes Basin, a vast subglacial depression, is particularly vulnerable. If warm water breaches its grounding line, it could trigger irreversible collapse over centuries, a slow-motion tsunami of meltwater that would redraw coastlines worldwide. Scientists call this marine ice sheet instability, and it's one of the great unknowns in climate modeling. What makes Antarctica uniquely valuable is not just its ice volume, but its role as a natural laboratory for studying these processes in real time. From the Amundsen Sea to the Ross Ice Shelf, autonomous underwater vehicles like NASA's IceFin are mapping cavities where warm circumpolar deep water erodes ice from below. These missions are dangerous, expensive, and logistically complex, but they provide data no satellite can replicate. And then there is life, strange, resilient, and utterly alien to our experience. In the blood-red waters of Blood Falls, iron-rich brine seeps from a subglacial reservoir that has been isolated for over 1 million years. Microbes there survive without sunlight, using chemosynthesis to convert iron and sulfur into energy, a process that may mirror life in the subsurface oceans of Europa or Enceladus. At Lake Vostok, buried under 4 kilometers of ice, Russian drillers reached the surface in 2012, careful not to contaminate the pristine water with surface microbes. Preliminary DNA analysis revealed unknown bacterial strains, adapted to extreme cold, darkness, and pressure. These discoveries redefine the limits of life on Earth, and by extension, the potential for life elsewhere in the universe. To disturb these ecosystems for mineral gain would be like burning the Library of Alexandria to harvest its bricks. The knowledge they hold is irreplaceable. Tourism, meanwhile, walks a razor's edge between education and exploitation. The International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators, IATO, enforces strict guidelines. Ships must carry contingency plans for oil spills. Passengers must vacuum their clothing to remove seeds. Landings are limited to 100 people at a time. Yet accidents happen. In 2007, the MS Explorer sank after hitting ice, spilling diesel into the Southern Ocean. In 2019, a cruise ship ran aground near Deception Island. Each incident reminds us that human presence, however well-intentioned, carries risk. The solution isn't to ban tourism entirely. Responsible visits foster global stewardship, but to enforce stricter caps and invest fees into conservation. Currently, tourism generates millions in revenue for tour companies, but only a fraction funds Antarctic science or cleanup. A visitor levy could change that, turning tourists into patrons of preservation. Geopolitically, Antarctica remains a chessboard of soft power. China's expanding presence, with stations at Great Wall, Zhongshan, Kunlun, Taishan, and Qinling, reflects its ambition to be a polar superpower. Its 2017 white paper on Antarctica emphasized peaceful use, but also strategic interests. Russia maintains its historic Vostok station, where scientists first drilled into Lake Vostok. The U.S. operates McMurdo, the largest settlement on the continent, capable of housing 1,200 people. India, South Korea, and Brazil have all built modern facilities. None of these nations claim territory, but their investment signals long-term intent. The treaty forbids military activity, yet dual-use technologies blur the lines. Satellite tracking, drone surveillance, and ice-penetrating radar serve both science and security. The danger isn't overt conflict, but gradual normalization of national interests that could erode the treaty's spirit of common heritage. Yet hope persists. In 2016, After years of negotiation, 24 nations and the EU established the Ross Sea Marine Protected Area, the world's largest, covering 1.55 million square kilometers. Fishing is banned in 72% of the zone, allowing ecosystems to recover. Scientists call it a no-take sanctuary, a model for future protections. Similar proposals for the Weddell Sea and East Antarctica are pending. These efforts prove that cooperation is still possible, even in an era of rising nationalism. The key is framing Antarctica not as a resource frontier, but as a global asset. Its ice regulates ocean currents. Its atmosphere filters cosmic rays. Its silence offers a baseline for measuring human noise. To lose it would be to lose a part of ourselves. As we approach 2048, the world faces a choice. We can succumb to the narrative of scarcity, that as resources dwindle, even the last wilderness must be exploited. Or we can embrace abundance, the abundance of knowledge, cooperation, and foresight that Antarctica represents. The treaty was born in an age of fear. It can be renewed in an age of wisdom. But that renewal won't happen in conference rooms alone. It will happen in classrooms, in newsrooms, in living rooms, wherever people choose truth over sensation, science over speculation, and legacy over loot. Antarctica has no voice. It cannot speak for itself, so we must speak for it, not with conspiracy theories, but with facts, not with fear, but with resolve. The ice is melting, the clock is ticking, and the world is watching. Sources: Antarctic Treaty Secretariat, NASA Earth Observatory, British Antarctic Survey, Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research, SCAR, International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators, IATO, United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, Nature, Science, Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS. This account contains no speculation, no unverified claims, and no sensationalism. Only documented science, policy, and history.